Hello there. Today I'm going to demonstrate how I learned to make pie crust. This is for Joe. He's asked me long ago to show him how to make pie crust, but now he's in America and I'm in Japan. He can't come back, I can't go to America, so I'm going to make a video and send it over. Okay. First thing you want to do, wash your hands and wash your tabletop really good. You want to make sure your table is clean. We're going to be using a technique called fraisage, I think that's how you pronounce it, where you rub the dough across the tabletop. So you want to make sure that tabletop is clean. You're going to need a bowl, measuring spoons, measuring cup, pastry cutter, there's a pastry cutter, flour, butter, cold water, did I say salt? Salt. Okay? So I'll tell you the recipe right now. It's, let me see here. We got 2.5 cups of pastry flour, 200 grams of butter, half a teaspoon salt, and 5 to 6 tablespoons of cold water. Now, you want to keep all this stuff cold. You want to keep all this stuff cold. So in the summertime, you try to do it as quickly as possible. But right now, here it's winter and we have no central heat, so my kitchen is plenty cold right now. So there you go. Okay, first thing you do is you measure out 2.5 cups of flour. Put her in your bowl. Doesn't have to be exactly perfect. 1, 2, 1.5 cups of flour. Okay. Then you take your half teaspoon of salt, half teaspoon of salt, put that on in there. Okay, good. And we use a fork to mix it up. Okay. Now this next part is going to take a little bit of time. We have to cut up the butter. So I'm going to show you how to do that, because you want the butter to be little pea-sized pieces of butter inside of the dough. So if you start with a big brick of butter, it's really hard to get it that small. I'm going to get this butter open. Okay, and this is 200 grams of butter, or about 1 cup. So first we slice it up in pieces. And then each piece I cut lengthwise and then cut it into little squares like so. Okay, and then put it in with the flour and the salt. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. It's going to take some time, so when I get it done, we'll come back. Okay, I got all the butter cut up into little chunks about like this, about 1 centimeter in size. Mixed it all in with my hands into the flour. Next, what we got to do is we got to cut in the butter. This is called a pastry cutter, and you use it like this as you turn the bowl to around and around and around and around, and you keep pressing it down in there. You're cutting this butter up into smaller chunks and mixing it with the flour. They say you want to do it until the butter is like the size of peas, or until the dough becomes crumbly. They say crumbly. If you're doing this in the summertime, you got to work really fast because the butter starts to melt and you can't get it done. See how I'm working this? This takes quite a while to do. So, and you got to keep sliding the butter off of your pastry cutter and back in there like this, and then go again and just keep turning it until you get it all down to that pea-sized, crumbly mixture of butter, flour, and salt. Okay, I'll keep working on this. We'll come back. I'm back. Okay, I've been working on this for a few minutes, and it's getting down to the point where you can't. I know you can't see this, but the butter is all down into pieces. Actually, my grandmother used to do it with her hands like this. Just kind of rub it until it got flaky. Because what you want to do, what's going to happen is, what you want flat layers of butter in between the dough. This is what makes pastry crust flaky, right? When you make the dough, you have these flat layers of butter in between the dough, the flour and the water, and that keeps them separate when you bake it in the oven. And the butter melts, and it keeps these layers separate, which is what makes your pastry flaky and light. So my grandmother used to just use her thumbs and forefingers and and do it like this. But I use a pastry cutter, so we went having all like this, okay? But we're good now. And so it's the right texture. So, and all this takes practice, just like everything else. It takes practice. You gotta practice to get good at it. Okay, the next part is our water. So in the summertime, you put ice cubes in here, keep it cold. We're plenty cold today, so I'm going to start out, make a little crater in the middle of it there. I'm going to start out with 1, 2, 3, stir it around a little bit. And this is just all practice and feel. Because the other thing you don't want to do is work the dough. You want to keep your hands off the dough, and you don't want to knead it. When you knead it, you develop gluten, which is going to make it hard and tough. So you want to just really try to use as little. That's 5 tablespoons right there. Okay. We're not developing gluten yet, but once we roll it out and we do the fraisage, French technique, pastry technique, for getting that butter flat. And that's still too dry. So you just got to kind of feel it. Put in some more water. That's 7. And the exact amount of water will depend on what kind of flour you're using, what the temperature's like. So now you kind of get in here with your hands. Are we getting close? I think we're getting pretty close. I'm going to put in one more. And how much humidity you have, all that plays into how much water you use in here. What kind of the kind of flour. Each kind of flour is different. So okay. I'm gonna put in one more just for good measure. In the wintertime, you have the luxury of being able to use a little looser dough because it's cold. And okay, now we dump this out on the table. Right? Get it together, and the fraisage, you get your dough on a mound here, and basically use the heel of your hand to slide it across the tabletop. Slide it across the tabletop like that. And you pull the edges back in. And another essential tool is the plastic scraper. So you can scrape it back and do it again. Right? Okay. And you just want to do this just until the point where your dough holds together. Remember, now we're not kneading like this like bread. We're sliding it across the table. Well, it's almost there. I think we almost got it, baby. We almost got it. Get this stuff back up here. We'll go one more shot and we're good. Okay. This is the big trick right here. Okay. Here we go. One more time. One more time. One more time. Yeah, I'm moving the whole table. And that's it. That's all you want to work it. Now we just got to make it into a rubber plastic scraper. Helps you get all the little tidbits up here. See why I have to have a clean table. Okay. So now, again, you don't want to work it too much. You just kind of press it together. Let's get everything. You don't have to waste this stuff. Oh, by the way, this recipe makes 2 pie crusts. Okay, makes 2 pie crusts. So I was going to make pumpkin pie because I still do have pumpkins left over from Halloween. There it is. But I decided to make quiche instead. So I'm going to make 2 quiches later. I'll show you how to make the quiche later. A little taste. Perfect. See that? Just like a lump of clay. Okay, now. This is another technique. I was a baker at a place called Paradise Cafe in Lawrence, Kansas, from about 1985 to 1990, before I came to Japan, and that's where I learned this stuff. So basically, you just pinch this puppy in half, like that. And now we're going to put it in saran wrap. Excuse me, turn it over like this. And you kind of sort of loosely fold the saran wrap up over it, turn it over, and you can mash it down into a nice little flat disc that makes like makes it easy to roll out because you got all your edges tight and unsplit in kind of a flat round disc shape like that. Take another piece of saran wrap and do the same thing to the other one. Okay, put that right in the middle and then try to get it a little round. Fold it up loosely, and then press down so that all the dough squirts out to the edges of your saran wrap there. And then you can kind of shape the disc into, well, the rounder and smoother your edges are, the easier it is to roll out when you come to rolling it out. Okay. So we got 2 pie dough discs, and especially in the summer, when you finish this, you got to put them in the refrigerator for 30 minutes to an hour. Okay, actually, right now it's cold enough here where don't need to do that. Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. Since we don't need to do that, right? Oh, we're going to use a scraper again. We'll keep the scraper up. We don't need the water anymore. But since we're here, we don't need this anymore. I'm going to wash my hands. You know what? I don't need to wash my hands. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to roll this puppy out. Okay, oh. You're going to get your pie crust. Pie pan. Okay. Here's my pie pan. This is a glass pie pan. I don't know if you can call it a pan if it's glass, but and when you're making pie, you want to have it nice. So it's always a good idea to grease it down. Just put a little grease on there. I use this for the other one. Rub it around with a paper towel. Just a little grease of that crust. Helps the crust not stick to the pan. Okay, so you gotta flour your board. First, scrape it off so you don't have sticky stuff in it. Okay. Okay, my last video cut off and I didn't realize it. Right when I was rolling out, I already finished one. You can see. Got one pie crust done. Now I'm working on number 2. I'll show you how I rolled it out. So, take it out of the saran wrap. Okay. And the first thing you want to do is cover it. Get some flour on it so it won't stick. Okay. Flour, kind of make it a little rounder. You can press it down a little bit if you want. Any cracks around the edges are going to magnify as you start rolling it out. Okay? Your rolling pin, and you just roll back and forth, turn it, roll back and forth, turn it, roll back and forth, turn it. You missed it. When I did the first one, I sang a little rolling on the river. Rolling, rolling, rolling on the river. If it sticks like that to your pin, you put some more flour on your pin. You can't really use too much flour now. The dough is made and it's set. A little flour around the outside isn't going to change the inside of the dough that much. So make sure to use enough flour so you don't wind up sticking, ripping up your pie crust. You try to use your rolling pin to try to form a nice shape. The last one was nicer, of course. You didn't get that one on film. This one's going to be kind of a square shaped. So you got to make sure you get it big enough so you have an overlap off the edge of the pan so that you can fold it under for the edge crust. We make where I worked at Paradise, Missy always taught us to make it's like a star pattern around the edge. So that's about big enough. A little bit more. Okay. Yeah, see, that's kind of square instead of round. Kind of screwed it up. What can you do? What can you do? So put your crust on your pan and get it centered. It's going to be okay. I'll show you a little trick. And you got one that's shaped kind of funky. And you got one that's shaped funky like this. You want to trim up the edges to make it all kind of even. And you can use the leftover, the stuff you trim off, to patch places where you don't have enough. Like, see that right there? See that? I'm going to take a little bit of water, fingertips, take this piece of dough and smear it around, and then just patch it right in there. The water helps it stick. Okay? That ought to do it. And then we fold it under like so. Here's another spot. It doesn't have much crust, so a little water. A little water, make it sticky, and patch it on the back. There you go. And then fold her under. You fold this edge crust under like this. Yeah. It's nice to have a higher table, but in Japan, nothing is tall enough. Okay, now just take your thumb and your forefinger of each hand, and you just press it together. It makes a little pyramid or a little star shape. You just do this, one to the next, all the way around your crust, and you get this little star-shaped pattern. A little flour on my fingers. This little star-shaped pattern. Boom, 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 This one, I got that water I put on my fingers is making them sticky. Alright? Just like this. Doesn't take long. You can do, there's many ways to do it. There's fancy, you can do it fancy, you can roll it, you can curl it, you can do all kind of stuff, but I always do the star pattern. That's what I learned, and that's what I do. So, there it is. Star pattern accomplished. And there's your pie crust. Let me come up and show you. It kind of looks like that around the edge. And you know, it's always good with pie crust, you know, if it's not perfect, if it doesn't look perfectly beautiful, it's more like homemade, you know, it's more like mama made it. So, there you go, how to make pie crust. And later on, I'll come back and show you how to make the quiche. Adios, baby. One more thing I'll show you. Method for cleanup. You got all your stuff here, you take your pan and your plastic scraper and you scrape everything right into your pan. It works really well. Put the pan in there, and then you get your rag, just a wet rag, and you just wipe it down, and that baby is clean. A little bit of butter still left on it, but you take a soap rag and get that down. Now, if it's gotten hard and stuck, you sprinkle a little water on it. And you move it around and then use your scraper and scrape it off, and that's how you can clean it up really, really nice and quick. There you go. We're back to good. Ta-da! I'm back. So, I made the quiche. I'm not gonna tell you how to make quiche. You can go online and find 1,000, 10,000 quiche recipes. The filling is easy. It's the crust. The crust takes technique. So I showed you how to make the crust earlier, and I'm telling you, this is some good crust. Are good. So, learn how to make that crust. If you can't get it, it takes practice. You got to practice hard. And the important point is, do not work the dough. It looks like, when you watch the video, it looks like I'm working the dough a lot, but I'm treating it light. It's like you're holding a newborn baby. You gotta treat it light. The only thing you use power on is the frissage when you're rubbing it against the table. You got it? You gotta treat that light. You work it too much, it'll be chewy, it'll be tough. You want to treat it light, keep the crust flaky. You can do it. It takes practice. Practice.